Jean-Paul Sartre on violence. In Exploration, Jean-Paul Sartre, 1905 to 1980, developed a complex, contextually grounded, and often provocative philosophy of violence. His views evolved across his existentialist phase, his engagement with Marxism, and his activism, particularly regarding anti-colonial struggles. Unlike thinkers who condemn violence in absolute terms, e.g. Camus, or sharply distinguish it from power, e.g. Arendt, Sartre treated violence as a regrettable but frequently necessary response to systemic oppression, scarcity, and dehumanization. Core themes in Sartre's understanding of violence. 1. Violence as a response to colonial and systemic oppression. Sartre's most famous and controversial statements appear in his preface to Frantz Fanon's The Wretched of the Earth, 1961. He portrays colonial violence as constitutive. The settler creates and maintains the native through brute force, reducing the colonized to subhuman status. In response, counter-violence by the oppressed is not mere savagery, but a restorative and creative act. Key passage. This irrepressible violence is neither sound and fury, nor the resurrection of savage instincts, nor even the effect of resentment. It is man recreating himself. Sartre argues that to shoot down a European is to kill two birds with one stone, to destroy an oppressor and the man he oppresses at the same time. There remains a dead man and a free man. Violence here serves as a cathartic force that restores humanity, agency, and dignity to the colonized. It is both destructive of the colonial system and productive of new human beings and potential new societies. 2. Violence in the context of scarcity and group formation. In his major philosophical work, Critique of Dialectical Reason, 1960, Sartre analyzes violence within material conditions of scarcity, rarité. Scarcity transforms human relations, making others potential threats and leading to serial, isolated, competitive existence. When individuals form fused groups in revolt, violence becomes central to group cohesion and praxis, purposeful collective action. The pledge and threat of internal violence help maintain group unity against dissolution. Violence is thus not an aberration, but a structural possibility inherent in human relations under conditions of scarcity and alienation. It can be counter-violence, a legitimate response to prior institutionalized violence. 3. Ambivalence and ethical tension. Scholars such as Ronald Santoni describe Sartre's position as curiously ambivalent. He often condemned certain forms of violence, e.g. bourgeois or imperialist, while justifying or romanticizing revolutionary and anti-colonial violence. Sartre recognized violence as an absolute evil from the perspective of the other, yet accepted it as a historical necessity in certain struggles. He did not advocate violence for its own sake, but as a tool in the service of human liberation. Sartre versus Camus, the famous dispute. The divergence with Albert Camus, crystallized in the early 1950s around The Rebel, 1951, highlights Sartre's stance. Camus condemned revolutionary violence as self-defeating and likely to produce new tyrannies. Sartre, increasingly committed to Marxist-inspired engagement, viewed such abstention as complicit with the status quo. For Sartre, refusing violence in the face of oppression amounted to moral evasion. Strengths and criticisms. Strengths. Sartre's analysis powerfully illuminates how structural and colonial violence provokes counter-violence. It connects existential freedom with political responsibility and highlights the embodied, psychological dimensions of oppression and liberation. Criticisms. Critics argue Sartre sometimes romanticized revolutionary violence and underestimated its tendency to spiral into new forms of terror or authoritarianism. His positions could appear selective, justifying violence against certain regimes while downplaying excesses in others, such as Stalinism. Some see his rhetoric in the Fanon preface as overly incendiary. In summary, Sartre viewed violence primarily as a dialectical response to prior violence embedded in oppressive systems. It could be destructive, yet also generative, a tragic but sometimes unavoidable means for the oppressed to reclaim their humanity and agency. His philosophy remains highly relevant to contemporary debates on asymmetric conflict, decolonization, resistance to oppression, and the ethics of revolutionary action. While morally unsettling to many, it offers a rigorous attempt to confront the realities of systemic injustice rather than condemn violence in the abstract.